Welcome to the Weird Octopus Podcast. It's a series of conversations with the humans who showed up before there was a map. I'm Perry, the founder of the Octopus Movement, and I believe nonlinear thinking is not just a way of creating possibilities, it's a way of being in the world. Each week, I speak with several founding members of our global human mycelium to explore who they are, why they think differently, and how they're shaping a future that cannot be built in straight lines. Well, let's go and meet today's guest. I'm very excited about our new founding member, John Bobo, and I have a lot of questions for you, John. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yay. And let's ask immediately, what has been your biggest mental challenge in your life?
Well, I want to start and say my multiplication tables in both years of fourth grade, but I think, and I still don't know them. Um, I I I thought law school was difficult when I went, but it was a great training ground to learn how I learn and learn rapidly, and I thought that was hard. And then I became a prosecutor, and so you're in an environment where everybody's lying to you. People are paid thousands of dollars an hour to be a jerk to you. And you've got to figure out what's the truth and what's the right thing to do. And it's really a very creative way to help people.
Mhm.
About 80% of the people, it was life skills issues. And then about 20% were predatory. And that was an incredibly challenging time because if I didn't get 12 strangers to agree unanimously that this person was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, that person could go kill and rape again, or all the other horrible things. So I had to really learn how people learned and tell stories and understand, facts and truth. And what's funny about it is I didn't know I was dyslexic or ADHD at the time. I was just trying to figure it out. But once I figured out the visual component of storytelling, um, because law school and courtroom is like the math class of storytelling, fact, 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 right?
Mhm.
And so I would just got really creative about doing that. I would go to the mannequin store and I'd buy body parts to show what went through what, and they knew my name there. I would, if the house wasn't in use anymore, I would sometimes bring in the furniture from the house where the crime occurred, almost like a play set, and have the witnesses walk through it. Um, and it was, and I learned a lot about people. I loved that I got to go in and, talk to an expert who's maybe knew the latest in DNA evidence, and a guy who lived in a cardboard box and smoked crack for a living. I loved that I got that
Mhm.
band of the human experience, but it took a toll after a while. And I think that was the hard thing, is just what I saw every day. And I started closing myself up for people, and people would tell me something and I'd say, well, if that, turns out to be true, we can look at that, mom. I didn't believe anybody. And so it was time. I enjoyed my service, but it was time for a change.
Did you believe yourself at the end? Because you just said, I didn't believe anyone anymore because what a crazy world you've been operating in. Um, so did you still believe your own thinking? Does that make sense when I ask that?
Um, I did. What is funny is when you're in a room and you may be the only prosecutor in that room. And to give you an idea, in a felony trial court, 3 prosecutors among us, we'd handle 15,000 cases. We had the highest caseload per capita of prosecutors in the United States. And you're just going through stuff. So I could be the only prosecutor in the room with hundreds of defense attorneys. And sometimes you really are the only person in the room that understand what's right and wrong. And uh, the trap is you can get self-righteous about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't like how much I was leaning that way. I mean, it's understandable when you understood my environment, but I knew there had to be a world where I wasn't right all the time. you know?
So it means that you became a prosecutor. It's not a job, but it became how you would think from day to day. Do I understand that
Yeah,
correctly?
well, it was intense, overwhelming experience, and you had to be able to deal with what was coming at you. You would, I would try murder cases back to back, and then I would have a phone call at 2 a.m. with police on the side of the road giving me the facts, and I'm trying to apply constitutional law, but the facts keep changing. It's it was a lot of life, and I ate it up. I really enjoyed it, and I love the community. And I spent 2 years after that traveling the country training police and prosecutors, judges when they'd listen.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book about those early years that is used in law schools and prosecutor offices, in some prison libraries. So yeah.
Oh, really? And so if people want to buy the book, they just go to Amazon and search on John Bobo?
Yeah, it's called The Best Story Wins and Other Advice for New Prosecutors. I thought I was writing a book for the smallest possible market in the world,
Yeah.
but it's been the book that could. And I've written some fiction as well. I wrote a novel about my experience there. It's fiction. It's all fiction. But I was there at a unique time. And what was going on is our prisons were overcrowded in the state of Tennessee. And so they were just releasing people if they got to a certain population level, and very violent people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a tough place to be, working with victims' families and seeing what was going on. And I think my own frustration of that led to my first novel, which did hit #1 in Crime Noir on Kindle, maybe for 15 minutes, but damn it rang the bell,
Wow. What is the book you're most proud of that you've written?
I have a short story called Taser Burned Badass, and you can read it over a cup of coffee. I think that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Sort of a coming of age from a criminal's point of view, and it's about freedom. But I like that story a lot.
So now from prosecutor to octopus, what makes you an octopus? What makes you a nonlinear thinker? And I'm very excited about asking you this question, because prosecuting is not the only thing you've done. So you have done some very interesting stuff. And what makes you an octopus?
Well, I can answer that 1,000 different ways. And let me try with a quick story. Have you heard about that? And I'm sure you have, that study of the monkeys are in the cage and they hang the bananas, and they go to reach for the bananas and the pressure hose is sprayed on them. And then they put in a monkey that never got the pressure hose, and he would reach for the bananas and the other monkeys would beat him up. Mm-hmm. Right. And they started switching the monkeys like that. So all of a sudden you've got all the monkeys in the cage have never had the fire hose on them, and a new monkey comes in and they beat that monkey up. I'm the guy who keeps reaching for the banana and keeps telling people what they could do. And we see this a lot in organizations, right? Mm-hmm. Organizations, they call it culture, but nobody remembers the fire hose that came in, and they're just beating people up at times. Yeah. And I like to look at the banana, talk about the banana, think about what we could do with the banana. And so I guess that's me. I've always been very creative and leaned into that. And I wish I could have figured out a way to make a living at that early on. I only knew of about 5 paths and only 2 jobs that my parents approved of. And, I would, if I'd known I was dyslexic, I probably would have taken different paths. I wouldn't have suffered so much. Yeah.
Really? What would have you done differently then?
I probably would have skipped law school and just moved to LA and tried to be a writer or a creative in some way. I think. And
to be a writer, people find that interesting, John, because, if you're not really familiar with dyslexia, then I might think, and I know that quite a few people think that if you have dyslexia, writing is difficult, is not fun. It's the opposite, I think, right? It's, how does it work for you? You have dyslexia, but you love to write. How has that always been the case, or was it very difficult at school and no fun at all? And then you left school and like, wait a second, I actually love this, if we're not focused on the things that I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, school is very difficult. And, but developmentally with dyslexics and other neurodiverse people, you can't always get what's in your head out of your arm onto paper. And so you're scoring really poorly on tests, but people know you're bright and don't understand it. Typing was the first thing that allowed me to get my thoughts out. And I just sort of leaned into that. And then I liked to tell the stories because I saw things that people did that were just unusual. And I always had a different point of view, not as a contrarian and not in a judgmental way, but it was, it was a great point of view to go through life thinking that you're a writer. So you're always observing, right? And you're always curious. And that was a gift. And of course I find out that's my neurology. Right.
And that curiosity and therefore, I think, seeing things differently, which makes you, I think, an octopus, a nonlinear thinker. In retrospective to your life, and you think about this now, and you went to law school, and you just said, well, if I knew I was dyslexic, maybe I should have skipped law school or whatever, but you did everything. So looking at your life now, looking back at everything, knowing that you're the one who saw things differently, and if that whole life is like a movie, and the day that you die, your movie becomes a museum, what is the first room in your museum, and how would you guide people through your museum of your life where you saw things differently and where your life is unique in that way, right?
I think I would have a very expensive gift shop filled with puzzles with all proceeds going to my family. When I was in law school and I didn't have much money, I would take my student loan money and buy T-shirts that said "Make Love, Not Law Review," which was a very prestigious thing you could be part of. And that's how I would fund my way through law school. And I often joke that I should have stayed in the T-shirt business. But look, I'm sometimes facetious and sarcastic, but what law school did for me is I learned how I learned, and I learned how to think critically, and I learned how to learn rapidly, which isn't always the case, and have confidence. Like, I could not study like anyone else in law school. And if I tried, it just made me really nervous. But if you went to my apartment, it looked like I was about to assassinate Kennedy. I had all these pictures and maps and red string. And then when the law is anecdotal, it always has a story. But when I got into regulatory things, which don't have stories, I created about 5 fictitious companies in my head. I did all this world building. And then I would be in a class and say, well, how would that tax law apply to my limousine company? Or how would this apply to my T-shirt company? And so I didn't realize why I was doing that. And in fact, the first time I saw dyslexic fonts, I cried because in law school, I would weight the letters of my notes for rapid review, not knowing why I was doing that, right? And then when I saw, dyslexic fonts, I was just, oh my gosh, that's what I was doing. Yeah. So you figure out these solutions. When I was trying murder cases, I didn't know that some dyslexics have to move to process information. So I would be doodling while the defendant's on the stand talking about how the gun went off 5 times accidentally in some guy's back, right? And then the detective would be looking at me, go, Bobo, what the hell? And I'm like, shut up, and then I would get up and on my good days try to eviscerate the defendant. But flash forward to when I'm working in professional sports and I'm in a high-level meeting and I'm doodling, and people are going, Bobo, what the hell? What are you doing? I could then say, well, I'm dyslexic, and that's how I process information. Yeah. This actually means I'm paying attention. Yeah. And that was a lot better than, I don't know why I do that.
So in your museum, there is a lot of, I can see all the doodling as artwork on the wall and illustrate your life that way. When you think about that museum, where it illustrates your life with all the different things and your different thinking and who you are and what you're doing, what is still missing in that museum?
I would say a big part of that, besides the visuals and the art, would be my bread and butter has been fixing things. And I've always joked that it was because I worked with dead bodies, I could go in and be unfazed. but it really, I've found out now, it's more of my systems thinking, and my ADHD just loves, I'm at a normal dopamine level. So
Yeah.
I'm calm and like butter, and everybody else is on the ceiling. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to do that. But I also like doing it because all the mundane, the mastery of the mundane stuff went away because I was in a fire. So sometimes I found it easier to be in a fire than to do the mundane things.
Yeah.
I think what's missing in that museum is, and I think this is my next chapter, I've always enjoyed serving people and helping people. And I want to do that for nonlinear thinkers. I want to create tools and other solutions that help them not address deficits, but to celebrate their strengths and their gifts and to be all they can be, right? It is, it's tough to be, we're the left-handers in a right-handed world in a way, right? Everything's a right-handed desk for us.
Yeah.
I think we will be the pathfinders in the age of AI, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I don't think other people realize that yet, but
Why not? Why do
why
you
not?
think why do they don't see it yet? What is that? I agree with you. We
Yeah.
found each other that way as well,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what makes you confident and sure that we're the pathfinders and it's not we, John and Perry, but we as different thinkers and sometimes the difficult ones and the mavericks and the weird and the odd ones. Why do you think that is?
I think businesses are built around repeated sets of behavior, repeated patterns of behavior. If you work at McDonald's, you flip burgers and you make fries a certain way. And if you don't, you're voted off the island. I think that's true in every organization. So when the organization says, oh, yes, we want innovation and change, well, anybody that's expressed that in the past was voted off the island and beat up, right? And so they have to go get a consultant because the consultant's allowed to express different thoughts sometimes. And that's where I think the out of the box, please be out of the box, but you've spent decades teaching these people to be in the box. And I think the box is dissolving. And I think there's kind of, there's still a tremendous amount of denial of people that don't realize there's a lot of people confidently walking into yesterday, not thinking that AI is going to impact them or touch them or change anything they do.
Confidently walking into yesterday.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I think that's why we're different. We see the art of the possible. We see what could really be. And we realize it's coming. It's coming faster than people realize. My first year as a professional, I walked around the DA's office and I said, hey guys, and gals, I said, there's this new thing called email and you really may want to try it. And they all said, nah, I'm not going to use that. Right. No. And we've hit these tables of equilibrium. We learn email, we learn the web, we learn the cloud. Now equilibrium is until the latest model comes out. Yeah. And when the latest model comes out, equilibrium's all scrambled up. Well, who's comfortable with ambiguity and novelty and sees the patterns and sees the path? It's us.
It's right? The adaptable human. It's
yes.
the nonlinear thinker. It's the square one in a round hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also I don't know if this is true or not. I'll speak for myself. A title was just a tool to operate in an organization. It was never definitional of me. I had to learn to reject definitions early. If I accepted all definitions early, I'd still believe I'm lazy and stupid, like every elementary school teacher told me. Mm-hmm. I never really paid attention to that. And there are a lot of people that clutch to that with, white knuckle grip, right?
Yeah. I know you're building something really cool for nonlinear thinkers. You just started mentioning that earlier on. You're looking for beta testers. I think we should use this platform, this opportunity to say, Okay, nonlinear thinkers, I'm building something really cool and I need your opinion if you think it's cool as well. I've seen it already. You've made some YouTube videos about it as well, which I think you've done a very good job, and it's fun, it's interesting. Um, if people want to be a beta tester for you, how do they organize that? Do they connect with us at the movement? They can always do that. If someone says, "Hey, I want to be in contact with Joe," I will refer them immediately to you. But how do they do it? How do they connect with you as a nonlinear thinker and
Send
be a tester?
send an email to info@thinkingschematics.com, and sign up, or send, that email gets to me. There's only one person in this company, so I see everything. And for now, but for me, thoughts have always been in motion and orbited other thoughts, and I've tried to build tools that reflect that. And I think my biggest joy is people saying, "That's how I think."
Yeah.
Right? You've caught it.
And you're probably gonna hear that a lot, John.
I hope so. I hope
I
so.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not being presumptuous saying this is the system you have to use or how you use it. I'm saying here are tools you build for the system your brain is already running.
Yeah.
And I think that's the joy of the years ahead of us, right?
Exactly. And creating this and producing cool things. And it's now with AI, it's become more easy to do so, which I'm very excited about. And I love the fact that so many people are producing now. Um, I will share what you're doing in the Octopus movement as well, and do a big shout out for people to register themselves with you and be a beta tester. There's something else I wanted to talk about. The first meeting we had, John and I,
Oh, yeah.
which was a lot of fun, and I just saw that you were wearing it, and I'm so happy with that. John has something that I'm very positively jealous on. I think jealousy is something positive. It's the word is not good because it is in the laws of thought. It's something negative, and that's why I'm saying it's. I'm positively jealous, meaning I really appreciate what you have, and I'm sincerely excited about the fact that you have this and you have a very special watch with an octopus. Can you share the story with us with that watch, because it's
Yeah.
awesome where it's coming from, what it is, and how it looks like.
Uh, so during COVID, we all had our rabbit holes of hyper focus, and a friend of mine got me on watches that weren't expensive. And so there's a brand out of Russia called the Vostok watch, and you can go on YouTube and see tanks run over them. I think originally it may have been the Rolex Diver, with the plans were stolen from the UK by the Russians in the 60s or whatever. But it's this. But then I saw this designer on Instagram, and I reached out to him. He was in Barcelona, and I had him create a brass dial. And then look, I've never worked with watches, but like a true ADHDer, I believe with the right YouTube, I could remove a kidney. And so,
Right, nothing is rocket science for us, right?
right, right,
Just share us the information and we will get it done.
right. So I took the watch completely apart and put it back together, not perfectly, but I put it back together, and it came out with my 10-handed watch. I don't know how close I can. There you go.
Yeah, this is perfect. Oh, look at that.
Right. And so I can, and what it's brass. And what I like about that is the idea that in future years, it will tarnish and turn green. And I think that'll only make it cooler.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
It's so beautiful.
well, I didn't even, I don't think there was an octopus group when I made it. And I became a octopus member very, very early. I didn't become a founding member until later, but I think our first conversation, I think all we talked about was octopus watches. So
Yeah, we really, and I went, of course, in that same rabbit hole immediately when I met you, and I checked out these watches and the stories and on eBay, and it's awesome. It's
okay.
beautiful, right? And
Yeah.
it's what I like about it as well. Of course it's the story, but it's also the craftsmanship, the analog, the beauty, the everything. It's really so cool. Yeah, I love
I
that.
think our access to knowledge now is just amazing what we can do. I've seen people say this confidently on LinkedIn, this is the age of creativity. I hope it is. I hope that imagination is my company's moat. I hope that imagination becomes celebrated rather than, you're a problem, because that's not the way we do things.
No.
Yeah.
Do you wish more people would be more into the scope of imagination? Also, with your experience of all the trauma and horror that you have seen in your life as a prosecutor, that you're thinking, my God, if there was only a little bit more imagination and a little bit more curiosity and some adaptability, these lives would have been completely different.
I will tell you, one of the hardest things for me is you're conditioned in your childhood that if it's not hard, it's not important. So all the things you do really well, like drawing or music or storytelling, are not important because you got to do times tables and spell correctly and do this thing. And you grow up thinking that if it doesn't feel like running through a brick wall, it's not important. But that's the gift of a label. It's the gift of knowing, is I could have had confidence in these gifts and I could have explored them more instead of apologizing for them.
Wow. Taking notes. Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the conditioning in a traditional school system, at least in the States, that we went through. And now in the workplace, there's some recognition in the United States of divergence, but it's a lot of jazz hands. Mm-hmm. It's still, nobody will reveal it. This is the first time I got to a point where I could mention it to colleagues when I was in motorsports or other positions, but I've never led with it. Mm-hmm. And I think what's so exciting now is I lead with it and I meet like minds, and it's just a completely different place of vulnerability. We can bond on how much we hate filling out forms, and
we can have fun about it rather than feel guilty that it's such a pain sometimes, right?
Right. And we can ask those important questions. Does the world really need another spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. If you could whisper a sentence in everybody's ear at the same time in whatever language, what would it be?
Send me your ATM pin. No, I would.
Oh no, let's dive into that, and then you can create another one.
Yeah.
So, what would that do to you if you create something and the whole world wants to have it, which is basically the same? Then they all will hand over their ATM pin, and you become very wealthy. What would happen to you? What? So John Bobo all of a sudden has 100 million. Then what?
Well, you'd have to contact my assistant. No, I grew up in the American South. If you can't tell from I speak with the lyrical accent of the intelligent and romantic people from the South. And humility is a blood sport. And a lot of times it was for show, and I'm more humble than you, but it really was part of the culture. I hope that you would never know I have 100 million. Yeah. Right. But with that, I would open I'd open a ton of art-based schools, because art and play is the way we all learn best. We would treat our children better. We would find out ways to treat people in the workspace. One of my biggest concerns is that 40 to 50% of inmates in the United States are dyslexic. Mm-hmm. Fuzzy numbers, but a big signal. And what a different world it would be if we could help those people. And I want to continue to help people, and it would certainly give me more resources. What I would whisper in everybody's ear is have confidence in those gifts that people tell you aren't important. I didn't know, but if I had known, I think it could have been a much more fun journey. I've spent a lot of years doing really hard things. And then, I eventually broke away and did more of things I loved. But we all have responsibilities, and my sons are dyslexic, and as I like to say, dyslexic children are just like other children. They just learn more expensively. And so, I think probably one of the biggest struggles of our family was doing everything we could to fight school systems, to afford private schools, to do what we could to put our sons and then my daughter, who's ADHD, on the best possible path. And I helped people for a long time, focused on them, and now I'm returning to helping people. And we are a public benefit corporation, and I just want to spread joy, right? Like everybody else.
Cool. I love it that you're a founding member at the Octopus Movement, John. And I think something I strongly believe in is everybody wants to grow, right? Everyone wants to grow their business, to grow their reach, to grow their movement, to grow their community. It's all about growing. And I think in the laws of thought of our traditional thinking, we think we need to work harder to let things grow. But I think it's all about working on yourself and understanding yourself and developing yourself that makes your business, your art, your whatever you want to grow grows because of you. And I think I would love to do a part two of this interview with you, John, and that we can dive into that. Because I'm guessing we could have a very interesting conversation about that.
I totally agree. My favorite quote of all times is, "If knowledge is infinite, so is personal ignorance."
Yeah.
As I've learned throughout all the years. And if you've been married for 34 years, being right's not the most important thing. So I
ask my kids. I have always trained them since a very young age. You don't have to be right, please.
Yeah.
It's not important to be right. Please.
Well, Perry, thank you for creating the Octopus Movement. It's been extraordinary to watch. It's been extraordinary to see the growth. I appreciate you letting me be a part of it. And I've already had so many folks reach out to me, and I'm really looking forward to get to know them.
So cool. Thank you for being here, John, and not just in the podcast, but in the movement, like you just said. And if you're listening and you feel a spark, please follow it. Nonlinear thinking is not a strategy. It's a kind of love, and it grows where we share it. Thank you so much, John, for being here. And let's record part two very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Perry. I appreciate you.
Thanks, John.
Bye.